Okay, welcome back to another vid. Long time no see. Cup of tea, need one of these. Always need a cup of tea. So, yeah, I've been a little bit lazy when it comes to making vids. I guess I should be looking there, shouldn't I? The way this camera is, so I put it kind of in landscape, but it means, of course, that the camera lens is at the top, but I'm so used to looking down the middle, but yeah, it should be over there. But if it appears that I'm a little bit cross-eyed, it's because I just forget and I'm looking over there or whatever. So, yeah, I've not made a vid for ages. 15 months. Unbelievable. 15 months since I've had a shave. 15 months of me eating Twixes and Kit Kats. I'll put on about a stone. Ridiculous. Diet starts January the 1st. As per usual. So, yeah, September 2022 was my last vid. And the one before that was January of 2022. So, given that we're almost in January, just another week and a bit, a couple of weeks, whatever it is. Yeah, less than 2 weeks, isn't it? So, yeah, that's really, really lazy of me. So, sorry about that. I've been busy with work, and you know what it's like. The days turn into weeks, the weeks turn into months, and then the months literally start turning into years. So, I've still been watching YouTube, albeit much more recently than in the past. I kind of went away from it a little bit. I still dipped in and out. I mean, the chances are that if I've always watched your vids and always commented in the past, I've still been watching, I just haven't really been commenting. And even recently, I've not been commenting too much, but I've started to, a little bit. So yeah, please don't be offended. I probably have watched your vids, just being really lazy when it comes to commenting. So, in fact, is anybody watching this? Maybe nobody's watching it. Talking to myself. So, yeah, Merry Christmas. I hope you're all having a good one. And, yeah, and it's been a great year for you. Like I say, I've not been active on here for 15 months. So, yeah, that's just really, really lazy of me. But I'll try at the very best and make sure that going forwards, these kind of gaps don't happen. Because it's just unacceptable. Lazy. So, this is going to be a pickups vid. But I've picked up a lot of stuff whilst I've been absent from YouTube. I have continued. I've not stopped buying games. I'll always be into it. I think I did mention this last September, not the one just gone, the one before that, 2022, where I said that I'm still a gamer. I always will be, but I'm a different kind of gamer. I'm a little bit more specific about what I buy. I don't really buy random things anymore. Okay, sometimes I'll take a punt on something, but back in the day, I'd just buy a stack of anything really, whereas now, the last few years especially, I think as you get older, you become more mature, you know what you want and you know what you don't want and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm a bit more particular about what I want. And also I've accepted, many years ago now, but I accepted that not everything out there is for me. I think back in the day I'd get very greedy and I'd consume all this stuff. Sticking another game on the shelf felt great, it looked great, but ultimately I wasn't playing almost, I had probably 80% of them. And it's just a waste of time. I enjoyed it at the time, but now it's definitely about buying the game and playing it. Although there are a few games here I've not played, not yet. I've been busy. Give me a break. I will get round to them eventually, though. In fact, I think there's one or two that's still sealed, but one arrived yesterday, in fairness, and the other one again. Just been so busy, I haven't had an opportunity. So, yeah, Wipeout on the background on the PS1, as you can see. What I may do, if I remember, is to change the game every now and again. So there might be a jump cut, just for something different to look at. If I remember, I might forget. Who knows? So yeah, a lot of stuff here. And let's go through it. Hopefully it's going to be not too long a vid. I was going to do a vlog, like a Friday brew, a Christmas brew, but this is kind of essentially going to be the equivalent. So I've got my cup of tea. Probably going to be a long vid. There's lots of different games on lots of different systems. There's way more than I've bought, I should say. But I just had to pick out a few. I can't show everything. It would be the longest video ever if I did. So I don't even know where to start. Actually, I tell you what, I'm going to have to move these around a little bit. Did you see that? No, you didn't. Good. So I'll start with, I won't show the actual systems. It's a waste of time. Just trust me. I've bought these two systems in the last year and a half. One of them is the Sega Dreamcast, which is a modded Dreamcast, which is really cool because you may remember, I'm sure, but for me, despite living in America for the past 15, 16 years, I do like to buy PAL stuff. You're going to see pretty much exclusively, almost, PAL nostalgic stuff anyway. And that's the key. When it comes to the retro nostalgia, it's really, doesn't have to be PAL, but but I like it to be, because it just reminds me of being a kid and all that kind of stuff. Different system names in some cases, different spines, box art and all that kind of stuff. Because gaming for me isn't just about the actual games, it's about the boxes and the memories that are associated with it. So it's the complete package for me, which is why I can't just buy, say, Sega Genesis games. The name Genesis means absolutely nothing. Different spines, different box art, so on and so forth. So I like to buy PAL stuff. Now I try not to import it these days. I just tend to buy the ones that are available on eBay America, ebay.com, and maybe in Canada as well, but this side of the world. That way I save an absolute fortune on postage and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so I've got a modded Dreamcast, which means I can play games from any region, so I'm kind of covered if I do want to buy a Japanese or an American Dreamcast game. But the PAL one that I've picked up, and it's quite an expensive one actually, to be honest, although I got it for a substantially, Christ, can't speak. Christ, it's festive, isn't it? On topic. A substantially cheaper rate than it usually goes for. Butchered that. It's called Res, and the music on this is really, really cool. I guess if you're into that kind of stuff. Sorry for the glares and the reflection from the TV. Not a lot I can really do about that. And again, the spines. Don't have them over here. So this is nostalgia. So with the Americans games, I think, is it black spine, maybe white? Maybe there's a couple of variations, but it's not like this with the stripe in blue. So yeah, it's just, I've just got to get these. It's as simple as. I don't mind the Japanese games. I've got a few. That's nostalgic, so that gets a pass. Because actually, I had a Japanese Dreamcast before the PAL one came out. It was the the very first system I imported from Japan. So I can let the Japanese Dreamcast slide. But yeah, really, really pleased to get it, and it's a really good game. I guess if you're into those kind of things. So, but it's the music for me, which is just absolutely essential. I'm trying not to elaborate too much. I'm sure you've heard of Res and all the rest of it. I want to really speed through because otherwise it will be a long, long vid. So pleased to get that. And just the Dreamcast in general, I've been really enjoying it in recent times. And yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because with me, even though obviously I always say it, I'm nostalgic. I think I've said it a couple of times this vid already. But for me, up until recent years, I was really nostalgic for that kind of late 80s and then early, especially early 90s stuff, early mid-90s, I guess. But then as time goes on, as things become older, which is how time works, other systems have started to become nostalgic, such as the Dreamcast, which is right literally at the tail end of the 90s, and the PS2 for that matter. The Xbox to a degree, but for me more the PS2. And that was obviously early millennium, I should say, 2000 that came out, didn't it? So, but yeah, even those kind of early to mid 2000s have started to become a little bit nostalgic now. So it's kind of funny how that works. Right, anyway, another system I've picked up in the last year and a half. Again, I'm not going to unplug it and just show it. Just have to take my word for it. I do have it. It's a Sega Master System. And one of the games that I've picked up for it and been playing recently is Streets of Rage. And this, firstly, let me just say, it's a faithful port of the Mega Drive version, or Genesis, call it what you will. Mega Drive then. Very faithful port of it, albeit in an 8-bit version. The music's good, nowhere near as good as the 16-bit, of course. Graphically, it's good. Playability, for me, it's fine. I'd heard a lot of people complain that the hit detection wasn't all that, but for me, I didn't really see a problem with it. I think it's pretty responsive for the most part. Didn't have any problems. My main gripe with the game, if you can call it a gripe, I suppose it is that it's just too easy. I'm not even joking, I put this on, this is a good few months ago now, I put it on for my very first go, and I keep forgetting, should be looking there, shouldn't I? Put it on for my very first go, and I finished it, and I think I used 2 continues, if I remember rightly. It's just ridiculous. Now, I'm not going to lie, I did slightly use a bit of, I exploited a bit of a bend of the rules, shall we say. I bent the rules, whereas I noticed slightly early on, well, actually about the midpoint of the game, I noticed that you can go to the edge of the screen, so basically I cheated. You can go to the end of the screen and you can punch, if you just keep kicking and punching, the opponents before they've come onto the screen. Now, it doesn't always work. If you don't time it right or you miss like a millisecond, and then they can get you and then they can come onto the screen. But I did use that trick, if you like, quite a few times. Probably why I finished the game. But yeah, I didn't start using it until probably at least the halfway point, and up until then, it was still very, very easy. So yeah, not too much of a challenge. On the back it says 8 rounds altogether, as they call it here. So, and then the boss as well, I just thought it was just ludicrously easy, I should say. When he came onto the screen, he's like shooting his gun and the bullets are going across the screen. And straight away I thought, oh my god, this is going to be a challenge. And it just wasn't. He just ran diagonally, and then I just kind of got behind him, just punched him a few times. And I just repeated that probably 6, 7, 8 times. And that was it. Game over. Now, obviously, you've got the 3 characters. What I like about it is that each character has its own ending of sorts. Like basically a static picture will come up and then the writing comes down on the screen. The one I got was, I think, with the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge in the background, which is quite apt because that's kind of, you know, near my neck of the woods. So that was kind of funny to get that. But yeah, obviously I could replay it with the other 2 characters, get other endings or another picture at the end. But it's just very, very easy. But I liked it. It's a good game. It's nostalgic in a way. Even though I didn't own a Master System back in the day, I knew a couple of people who did. And of course I just remember the games from being in magazines and friends having them at school and all that kind of stuff. And occasionally go around their house and playing on it when they had one. So, yeah, and seeing it in the magazines and the shops, like I say. So it is a nostalgic system. So it's a good game, but it's just too easy. So, yeah, that's that. So that's all I'm going to show for the Dreamcast and the Master System. Alright, let's move on to another nostalgic game. Take a shot every time I say nostalgic or nostalgia. You'll be absolutely pissed at the end of this video, I'll tell you. So this one is Terminator 2 on the Game Boy. Yeah, so basically, when I went to Tenerife, which is an island off Spain, in 1992, October, getting very precise here, aren't we? I borrowed a friend's Game Boy, and called Ben, who now lives in Australia. And it's funny, I remember it so clearly because I remember asking him if I could borrow his Game Boy. Think about it, you're going up to someone and say, can I borrow your Game Boy for 2 weeks while I jet off to Spain? And he was like, well, he was a good friend of mine, but he was very much on the fence. He's like, I'm not sure, it's like... And then I remember saying, I'll give you, because I had a spare one, I'll give you a copy of Lemmings on the Atari ST. And he was like, yeah, all right then. So I gave him that copy of Lemmings, and he let me borrow his Game Boy, basically. So I took it away, with me to Spain, to Tenerife, and it's, yeah, just very, very, here we go again, very nostalgic. Just reminds me of playing it on the plane on the way there, probably on the way back as well, and also while I was there. So yeah, it's one of those games, and I like it. It's good. It's a bit hard, but glad to have it. And the game, I love the boxes as well. They really do take me back to back in the day. I just think they look really, really cool. So yeah, I've been picking up a few Game Boy games every now and again. I'll grab 1 or 2. It's quite an expensive hobby, as I'm finding out with the original Game Boy. But I'm liking them. They're good. So that's that. Okay, let's move on. You know, let's have a swig, and then we'll move on to the SNES and the Mega Drive. By the way, sorry if you can hear someone outside. I don't know if you can or not, but someone's doing the garden or the lawn out the front, so I didn't know they were going to be arriving today. It's kind of annoying. I feel like going outside and saying, can you shut up for 5 minutes? Well, 55 minutes. So, yeah, apologies if you can hear it, but hopefully this should all be... that is really loud. That's annoying me. So, yeah, we're going to move on to the Super Famicom, the SNES, and the Mega Drive. So, let's start with the Super Famicom game. So, just a little bit of clarity here. So, when it comes to the Super Nintendo, I do have a multi-region system. It's a Super Famicom, but it plays games from all regions. And I will buy physically Super Famicom games or PAL SNES ones. So that's kind of what I do there. But I don't import any SNES games that I buy. Same with any of this PAL stuff. It's games, I think I touched upon before, that I'll buy in America. So this is a Super Famicom game though. And I'm really pleased to get this. But the way it came about is that the person selling it was clearly selling his collection. He's just selling his box collection. Of boxes only, I should say. And in the item description, he mentioned how he was keeping all of his carts. Tell you what, today's one of those days, can't speak. This is what happens when you don't make vids for 15 months. So he was keeping all of his carts, but he was selling all of his boxes. He's probably regretting this big time now. And I tell you what, I'm regretting it in a way as well, because I should have bought more. But I remember thinking at the time, I don't really want to be buying like a load of loose boxes, spending hundreds of dollars on cardboard without any cards. So I just got this one. I'm glad I did though, because this is a game that can go for maybe what, $500, $600, maybe even a bit more. I've seen it go for in the past. So anyway, the game is Final Fight Tough, like I say, on the Super Famicom. So I bought this box for, I think it was around about $85, and then I bought the loose cartridge for a similar amount. It might have been slightly cheaper actually, which was a steal because it usually goes for a lot more. So yeah, for about $150, $160, there or thereabouts, I got essentially the complete version with the cartridge, the inserts, the manual, the box, of course, box protector it even came with. And yeah, really pleased to save an absolute fortune on that. And the game's really, really good. Graphically, it looks brilliant. It's just a side-scrolling Final Fight game, of course. But it does make me laugh because a little bit like Streets of Rage, although I didn't cheat on this one, it's just too easy. It should be called Final Fight Easy. Honestly, I swear to God. Now, I didn't finish the game, so you're probably thinking, well, hang on a minute. But I played, my very first go, played it. I probably got maybe 3/4 of the way through. And I was a bit bored because it was just so easy. And I turned it off and I thought, I'll just go back to it later. And I haven't actually been back to it since. But it is a really good game and I will stick it on soon, actually. And yeah, graphically fantastic. The sound, no problems whatsoever. Playability, fine. For me, anyway, no input lag, no game-breaking mechanics. A really good game, just incredibly easy. So it's a shame, but I tell you what, really pleased to pay the price I paid, because if you want to get, like I say, a boxed complete version without having to piece it together and Frankenstein it, then you're looking at around about $500, $600, $700 by all accounts. So, which is wild. I really wouldn't pay that, but yeah, to do what I did, to get it that way is an absolute steal. Okay, so let's show a PAL game. In fact, let's move this because then I can show both PAL games together. So let's start off with this. I think this is the Italian version, although it's English on the back. So I guess what I should say is it came out in Italy, even though it's the... I'll show you and it'll make more sense. So it's Disney's The Jungle Book. And the reason why I say it's the Italian version is because there's an Italian sticker on the front, if you can probably see that there. So, but on the back, it's completely English. So I think what they did, if I remember rightly, in the mid-90s, maybe 95, 96 possibly, could even have been maybe a year or so after that. Well, in fact, yeah, it says on the back 1997, so we're kind of getting late 90s really. In 1997, what they did with these blue boxes, they re-released them in, I believe, Italy, maybe France and Germany. I'm not sure they came out in the UK, but that would explain why they're English on the back, because it's like kind of a multi-region release, or multi-language release, in-game at least, although on the back it's English. Am I confusing you? I'm confusing myself. So, but I don't believe that it came out in the UK, is the point that I'm trying to make. So it's just a platform game, and yeah, put it on fairly briefly a while ago. Been back to it a couple of times since, but again, just for like kind of 15-20 minute spells. I do like it, and yeah, it's a bit challenging, this one though, whereas in stark contrast to a couple of the other games, which I said were quite easy, this is kind of up there for me with almost Terminator Game Boy levels of difficulty. It kind of lulls you into that false sense of security where you think it's going to be easy. All you're going to do is jump from platform A to B, jump over the enemy, bounce on his head or whatever, but then something will happen. It'll take you by surprise. So, yeah, quite challenging, but like anything, you get used to it eventually. So, really pleased to get that one. And again, it's the multicoloured spines that just take me back. The American games, I kind of warmed to them over the years with like the black spines and a bit of coloured writing on there. But the completely coloured PAL SNES spines, that's what it's all about for me. Just takes me back. So, speaking of multicoloured spines, we don't have one next on the PAL one, which is Alien 3. So this is like a black spine. Listen, I don't mind them every now and again being black, that's fine. But an entire wall of multicoloured PAL SNES games looks amazing. So, yeah, this again takes me back. And it's one of those situations where I've mentioned this before, and I'm sure other people have as well, where back in the day, you'd get the Mega Drive version would come out and the Super Nintendo version, and more often than not, they would be different experiences. There would be a reason and an excuse to have both versions if you could afford it. I mean, I couldn't. I was a kid. I was at school. But as an adult, we can go back and get both versions and compare. And it's just amazing to see how different these games are. So, yeah, side-scroller, really good. I always, as a kid, preferred the Mega Drive version, I've got to be honest. but I've warmed to this one as the years have gone by. And yeah, it's really, really cool actually, and a great addition to the collection. It was fairly cheap. So Alien 3, pleased to get that. Right, let's move on to a couple of Mega Drive games. Both of these annoyingly missing the hang tab. It shouldn't matter, but it does. The first one is a game which I used to have, going back in, when was it, about 93? I think this would have been. 94 possibly, yeah. So NBA Jam, a classic, a sports game, but an absolute classic. Boom shakalaka, he's on fire, all that kind of stuff. Really playable, even today, brilliant version. Obviously it came out on many, many systems, a plethora of not just retro, but more modern systems as well. And yeah, I like it, it's really good. It's still a lot of fun and still holds up as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, really nice condition, apart from the hang tab missing, and you don't need to see this, but I'm going to show you anyway. Boxed and complete, and I tell you what, this instruction manual is crisp, really, really crisp. Like quite literally, it's as if somebody has never looked at it. Even the cart, for some reason, it's so vibrant. I hope no one's put a bloody replacement sticker on there. Why would they do that? It's NBA Jam. It's like a $10 game. So yeah, really, really pleased to get that. And then this one as well. This is one which takes me back to the early days of the Mega Drive before I got one. So before I got my Mega Drive, which was Christmas '93. And I got my SNES for Christmas '92. So I think it would have been the year before then, my cousin had a Mega Drive. Now he's, I think, 5 or 6 years younger than me, spoilt brat. But he had a Mega Drive, and this is one of the games he had, and I used to love it. And it's super hang-on. So yeah, it looks, I love the cover. Looks really cool. Again, the glare, sorry if you see any of that going on. And a really good game, very arcade-based. And actually, for me, it's quite comparable when you put it side by side, relatively speaking, to the arcade version. A really good, faithful rendition and port of this. So, yeah, just motorbike racing, and a really good one. Fairly cheap, well, in fact, very cheap, but a really good game and a lot of fun. Okay, let's move on to, what should we show? Let's move on to the PS1. So there's a fair few games here. I mean, I've bought loads of PS1 this last sort of year and a half. Loads. But I've just picked out a small selection. So I did say I was going to change the game, but maybe I'll do it in a bit. We'll see. So yeah, no particular order. Let's start with this one. Now this wasn't cheap. This was fairly expensive, but again, living in America, I got it for slightly less than what it usually would go for in the UK. And I think it's like kind of an 85, 90 quid game. Maybe now it's breached the 100 quid barrier. I'm not sure, but I probably got it for around about in pounds, even though it was from an American seller. Let me see the conversion, probably would have been maybe 70. So a real steal, it really was. And that game is called Lomax. So this is basically a platformer, 3D platformer in the Lemmings universe, if anyone remembers that from the Amiga and the ST, predominantly those systems. And it's really, really good. The graphics look brilliant. I mean, it's kind of a 2D pixelated look to it, which obviously wasn't particularly cool at the time because a lot of people wanted 3D games, myself included. 2D was very kind of old and boring by that point because we'd seen it for years. So 3D was really exciting. I look back now and think, bloody hell, I wish we'd have had more 2D games, quite frankly. But I do love the 3D stuff. It's extremely, get ready for another drink, nostalgic. So, but yeah, this is a really good game. I really, really like it. I think, does it come in a couple of discs or just the one? Yeah, it's just the one disc, but it's one of these which come in these kind of multi-dual boxes, which is actually kind of annoying because then you've got to put the bloody thing back in. So yeah, pleased to get it. It's quite a pricey one now, like I say, but it's well worth having, and I really like it. So I'm just looking here actually, yeah, so I've wrote down a few codes, clearly so, and looking on the back, it doesn't look like it's... you use a memory card, so maybe that's what I've been doing with it, just writing down the codes when you get to the end of the level. And there we go. If you've got, I'll show you it. If you've got Lomax, then enter that, and then you can get to whatever level I was on at that time. You're welcome. The things I do for you. Unbelievable. I laugh if this is like level 2. Like, what's the point? I've saved you one level. So yeah, really pleased to add that one to the never-ending PS1 collection. Listen, I shouldn't be saying this, 'cause it's like teasing you, isn't it? Like reeling you in and then letting you down. So I was going to do a PS1 collection vid, but I'm simply not going to get the time. I know that. But maybe we'll do that in the future. And quite frankly, there's so many more games I'd like to get. That has got even louder outside. That is getting on my wick. I don't know if you can hear it. Lawnmower. So, yeah, do you know what? What we'll do is I'll take a break. I'll change the background. I'll play this back a little bit to see if it's really noisy. It probably isn't. You probably can't hear a bloody thing. But trust me, I can. And it's really irritating me. So we'll take a break at low max. And then we'll come back in, well, for you, which will just be a couple of seconds. See you in a bit. Okay, we're back. Do you know what? I'm not even joking. It's been like 10 minutes or 2 seconds for you. Still outside. Unbelievable. But it's quieting down. It got really, really noisy. So I've changed the game. I guess, can you see it? Skullmonkeys. I can't remember if I talked about this in a previous vid, so if I did, then I guess I'm saying it again. If I didn't, well, it's a new pickup. So yeah, Skullmonkeys, a platform game on the PS1. Really charming. The music is so addictive. You'll be humming along to it constantly. It will get into your mind, into your skin, under your skin, I should say. It is ridiculous. So, a really good game. It's definitely got that thing to it where you just want one more go. And also, it's a really, the way it's designed, it's very clever. You know, in terms of like, you can just keep going, just jumping up, and it seems to go on forever. Where you collect these little orbs and different power-ups and all this kind of thing. So, yeah, really challenging game. But it's got that thing where you just one more go. And then you'll lose a life. But it's like, it's frustrating. And especially frustrating when you get all the way to the top. And you don't have to go there. There's like multiple routes, really. But, and then you drop down a level or two. It's like, oh my God. And then you do it again. But really rewarding. A real sense of achievement when you finally do the level. And another one, funnily enough, where it relies on the old system of writing a code down. Or in this day and age, I guess, taking a picture with your phone. So no memory card on this one. So that's a really good game. Well worth checking out. And I think Skullmonkeys is, I don't know what it is these days, so about 30, 40 quid, maybe a bit less. Well worth getting. If you like your kind of platforming game, as you can see behind, then give it a go. But like I say, be warned, it's really challenging. It will stress you out, but it's got that just one more quick go about it. And the music, as I keep saying, is really, really cool. So, yeah, that might be a new pickup which you've never seen before. Or maybe I have shown it before. But either way, Skullmonkeys. Next up is a new pickup. This was just the other day, actually. So pleased to get this. And, yeah, it's one which I used to have, so I have experience with this. And I love these kind of games anyway, especially the old ones. Not so much new games. Definitely the old school ones. First-person corridor shooters, really. And it's called Exhumed. I think in America this came out as Power Slave. I nearly said Power Drive, but I think that's a game on the Jaguar, isn't it? Driving game. So yeah, Power Slave, I'm pretty certain, but Exhumed in PAL regions. And yeah, just think of Doom, basically, with like kind of Egyptian sort of tones to it. And it's really, really cool. I like it. It's very kind of foreboding, like a lot of these games are, like Doom. I mean, the front cover as well, it looks pretty menacing, doesn't it? So yeah, plays really well as far as I'm concerned. I remember it from, you know, back in the day, so I'm a bit nostalgically biased. But I do really, really like the game. So, yeah, Exhumed. Excellent addition. Really, really pleased to have that one. Next up, alright, now this is a funny one because I've got two to show here, but one of them I definitely did show a couple of years ago, if not more, actually, on a pickup speed. But the reason I've got this is because it's a kind of it's to use as a bit of a comparison. So the game that I'm first going to show, the new pickup, which I've never shown before, is Felony 1179. Again on the PAL PS1. So this is a really cool game, but its problem for me is that it's just way, way too short, and it's a little bit like Insert Prop, a game I showed a few years ago, I think, called Midnight Run. Again, PAL PS1. Now, Midnight Run was an arcade game. It was based off an arcade machine, and from what I remember, I don't even think they added any PlayStation exclusive gameplays or anything to it. It was just basically just a port, essentially. Maybe there's one or two other things they did, I can't remember. But it's an extremely short game. It can be quite challenging, but I think there's like 2 tracks maybe in the game. It's ridiculous. But I really like it. It's still fun to play. And it's a little bit like Felony 1179, which it's upside down. I also think is an arcade game. And if it is, it looks like it's just another straight port. So, whereas Midnight Run, I think, has got 2 tracks, this has got 3. A paltry 3 tracks. And it makes me laugh because on the back it says, there's a little blurb, I won't read it all out, but it says, with over 20 different vehicles for extra replay value. I mean, I don't think so somehow. There's no real reason, other than aesthetically, that you'd want to race with the other vehicles. I don't think they bring any new kind of elements to it, like in terms of the mechanics, to the feel of it. I think they all pretty much feel the same. They just look the same. I do stand corrected on that, but even then, even if they do feel differently, you're still racing on the same tracks. So yes, you could say there's multiple routes around the different kind of cities. That's true, but ultimately you do have to get to the same end place. And some of those ways you can go are dead ends anyway. So I don't know. It's just a very, very short game. You know, you pick up the contraband, you pick up the explosives to maybe use when you're going to drive through a big fence or a barricade to blow it up so you can escape. And that's pretty much the game. And it's not particularly challenging, not really. And if it is, it's only because you're going to get lost. And then by the time you've reversed and got onto the right path, that's really what's going to fail you at the game. It's just too easy. It really is, ultimately. So, which is a shame. But it's not very expensive. And I do like it. It's just lacking in content. That's all it is. So just be aware if you pick Felony 1179 up or Midnight Run, and this is fairly expensive, this one. That one, not so much. If you pick them up, just be prepared for the fact that it's very short when it comes to gameplay. And then the last PlayStation game, original PlayStation, PS1, as we've kind of subsequently come to know it as. It's topical because it's Christmas, so Cool Borders, or Cool Borders 2 in this case, really takes me back to working in Electronics Boutique in 1997 or 98? 97. So, yeah, and memories, so many anecdotes which I could probably and will share maybe in the future. Yeah, some ridiculous stories, some funny ones as well. But yeah, let me tell you what. I'll tell you what now. Actually, it's Christmas story time. So, working in Electronics Boutique, it was coming up to Christmas of 1997. Let me grab a drink. And a friend of mine from school, from like a couple of years before, I'd since left and started working. Well, went to college and then started working. So a friend from a couple of years previously at a secondary school, so I've probably not seen him since then, called Joe. I say a friend. He's a bit of a knobhead, to be honest. It's got to be honest. More of a friend of a friend. Anyway, he was all right on his day. And he comes in to Electronics Boutique, and so I worked in two branches. I worked in the Poole branch and then the immediate town next on, which is Bournemouth. So I worked in both of them, Poole first and then Bournemouth eventually. This particular one was Christmas 97, so it was just before I started working in the Bournemouth branch. So we're in Poole on the south coast. And so he comes in and we instantly recognise each other. All right, mate, how you doing? Mate. Now, we didn't have a falling out or anything. Like I say, more of like a friend of a friend. But we knew each other. So, yeah, how you doing, mate? Yeah, good, how are you? He's like, yeah, he says, I've just got an N64. I'm thinking of getting a new game. And he's holding up NBA, the NBA game, funnily enough, because I showed one of those earlier, didn't I? Was it NBA Jam on the N64 or NBA Jam Hang Time? I think it might have been called. I think that's what it was. And I know and I remember from our school days, he was massively into basketball. So he was kind of into that thing. And he was, yeah, I'm thinking of getting this. It looks really good. And I'm like, well, it's pretty good. It's all right. I said, but really, you've got to get this. And the game I held up, well, I've not got it to show here, but it was GoldenEye, because everybody had GoldenEye back in the day. Come on, you remember that. It was a great game. Well, most people thought it was a great game. Me and my friends, we loved it, obsessed with it. 2-player, even just single player, split screen with 4-player. We did that numerous occasions. Brilliant, brilliant memories. And I said, you've got to get this, mate. Seriously, everyone's buying this. It's #1 in the charts. And he's like, I've never heard of it. So straight away, alarm bells should have been ringing. He's never heard of GoldenEye. What's going on here? I said, mate, buy it. You'll love it. Trust me. Trust me on this one. And he was a bit hesitant because in one hand he kind of had GoldenEye that I was shoving into his hand. And the other one he had NBA Hang Time. And he went, oh, yeah, go on then. So he buys GoldenEye, right? And I'm like, you will not regret this. Went to the counter, took the money, put in the bag. You'll love it. See you later. Happy Christmas. You're welcome. And off he went. So the next day, or a couple of days later, I think that was probably Christmas Eve maybe. So maybe Boxing Day, he comes back in, or there, maybe just before. Whatever day it was a couple of days later. He comes, I see him walking through the door, and I'm immediately thinking, oh, he's come to get NBA Hang Time because he was going to get it the other day and he wants to get that as well. Comes up to the counter, he's got a bag in his hand, and he's like, oh, hi, Alex. He says, to be honest, I just thought it was rubbish. GoldenEye he's talking about. I didn't like it at all. Not my kind of game. I don't know what the fuss is about. Do you mind if I switch it over for NBA Hang Time? I couldn't believe it. My mouth and my colleague's mouth on the floor, jaw dropped. Like, you bloody moron, unbelievable. So I said, no, get out. No, of course I said, yeah, no worries, mate. So got NBA Hang Time, scanned the refund, all that kind of stuff, and off he went. And he loved it, apparently, by all accounts. So NBA Hang Time was his thing. He came into that store on that day wanting that game, and I tried to change his life for the better, but he wouldn't have it. So he missed out there. Now, he's obviously happy he got the game he wanted, and it's just amazing, isn't it, how we all like different things. Now, clearly not everybody loves GoldenEye. You've got to, I get, you don't have to be a James Bond fan, but I suppose you have to like those kind of games. But so many people love it, and rightly so. And I know it's aged a lot these days, but still it's a classic game. And just to hear him say he just literally thought it was rubbish was just incredible. And it's not even someone saying it's rubbish now, which you can understand, again, with the controls. He was saying it was rubbish then. It was like, my God, unbelievable. So anyway, moving on. Slightly sidetracked there. So, Cool Borders 2, yeah, it's just a snowboarding game. It's really cool. I enjoy it. And it still, actually, for me, holds up a little bit in a very sort of simplistic, you know, I guess 32-bit way. But yeah, I like it. And eventually I do want to get the first one and the third. I don't think there's a fourth. Or maybe, is there a fourth? I know there's a third. There may be a fourth, not sure. And if there isn't, there should definitely be one. If a franchise is going to come back, if you think about it, for this time of the year as well, like very festive, then I think Cool Borders would probably sell really, really well. So anyway, so that's all I've got to show, at least on the PS1, but of course I've been buying loads, so lots more to show in the future. Let's move on to the PS2. Same score with the PS2. I adore that system, really getting back into it a lot, as I touched upon earlier in the vid. And but just two to show you, two sort of fairly random ones. The first one is 1945 1 and 2, the arcade game. I know a lot of people don't like the bland, and they are, spines, but I do like them. I think they look really cool. I like the uniformity. So there we go. But yeah, shoot 'em up. When it comes to shoot 'em ups, I've always said the same thing. I really like them. I like buying them. I like playing them. I'm just not very good at them. But you don't have to be, do you? If you're having fun, that's what it's all about. So yeah, enjoying that one. And then last but not least, on the PS2, we've got Capcom Classics Collection. This is Volume 2. So yeah, this is an interesting one because there was someone in America, again, like I say, where I buy the PAL stuff from. I'd never say never to import in a PAL game. If I really, really want it, then obviously I'll make exceptions. But the reason why I stopped importing them regularly is because it was starting to cost me like £20 a game, which is like sort of $25, $30, just shipping, just for postage. And I'm not made of bloody money like anyone else. And it was like, this has got to stop. This is stupid. So I stopped. So it's the same with the diet when it comes to junk food. When I'm on a roll and when I start to do it, I can do it. It's just getting to that point. God, now I've said that, I'm thinking of eating a Twix again. I'm obsessed. So, yeah, Capcom Classics Collection Volume 2. So someone on eBay was selling 10 sealed copies. They must have had like a box, like a case of them. And he was only wanting $10 each with like a best offer. Free shipping, as we call it here, off postage in the UK. And I made a cheeky offer because he had 10. I thought $8, including postage, and he accepted. So great. And it was sealed. And yeah, it's really cool. There's a lot of good games on here, Capcom games. So the ones that kind of interest me that I've been playing are Knights of the Round, which I did a gameplay of that on the SNES, American SNES, going back a decade ago easily. Captain Commando, Black Tiger, 1941, speaking of, 1945. What else? The King of Dragons, that's another game I've been looking to get recently on the Super Famicom. It's not an amazing game, but I like those games, that the side-scrolling 16-bit beat-em-ups, essentially, so I do want to get that eventually. And what else have I been playing on here? Tiger Road a little bit, and Street Fighter and Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Well, I've got them on the Super Famicom anyway, so I've not really been playing the PS2 versions. But yeah, there's other games on here as well, some I've never heard of, quite frankly. Oh, and Mega Twins, I've been playing that on here as well. And a few of those that I've just mentioned I finished. I thought they were really easy. again, I don't know what it is with me. As I get older, I just seem to be getting better at a lot of games. I know a lot of people around about my age, 28, a little bit more. A lot of people my age say that their reflexes are kind of slowing down. Not with me, mate. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on. I'm getting better at some games, maybe not all, of course. And there's a really annoying game, I think, coming up in a bit, which, to be fair, is testing my patience, which we'll talk about. But generally, I seem to be doing a lot better these days at games. Maybe it's just concentrating and using your focus and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, really pleased to get this. And the last time I looked on eBay, this is ages ago actually, so I'm sure he's kind of sold out. But he still had a few copies left. Not that it'll matter, because almost all of you watching, if anyone is watching, is probably going to be in the UK and wanting a PAL copy from the UK. You don't want to import it. But yeah, you might not be aware of it. If you're into your compilations and the old retro games and stuff, you might want to check that out. So that is that. So there's just a few systems left. This video is obviously going to be long, but that's fine because it's Christmas and it's my first video for a long time. So let's move on to the PS3. 3 games here. Yeah, so this one, when did it come out? 2009? No, 2011. So I never got round to getting it, and I always wanted it. It's Portal 2. And what appealed more than the game itself, although that was appealing, was the fact that Stephen Merchant of The Office fame with Ricky Gervais and Cal Pilkington, the podcast, he does the... I don't know if it's... Does he do the narration, or does he voice one of the characters? I can't quite remember. But I know he's in it, very prominently so, and so I'm looking forward to playing this. Always wanted to play it. It's just one of those that I just never got round to getting. That happens every now and again. It's a little bit like the next one, really. Well, in fact, the next two, in a way. So, yeah, always wanted to get it. Looking forward to it. I do like a good puzzle game that really makes you think, and by all accounts, this is one of those. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to that. Do you need to see the spine? You don't, but there you go. You've seen it. Next up, I remember playing the demo for this in 2009 on the PS3, but to my knowledge, I never got round to to owning the game. If I did own it, I didn't play it, which is bizarre, and I don't know what I ended up doing with it. I traded it in or gave it away, sold it. I don't know. I don't think I've owned it, but maybe I have. But anyway, that game is called Heavy Rain, and I really liked the demo back in the day. It just looked really intriguing. I know there's very much different routes you can take through the games, or different endings, I guess, depending on decisions you make and maybe clues that you find and uncover. So, you know, no spoilers, of course, if you don't mind. But yeah, I'm looking forward to giving this a go. So yeah, 2009. So I was in America then at 2009. This is how long I've been here. And it reminds me of that spring or that summer, because that's when I got my PS3. And I think this came out maybe more towards the end of the year, I'm not sure. But like I say, I remember downloading the demo, playing it, liking it, thinking I'm definitely going to get that. Just didn't get around to doing it until now. And a fairly similar story with this. It's not one which has ever been high on the list, to be honest, but I did want to get it when it came out. But then in more recent years, I just was completely put off, because in America at least, the NTSC copy, it's kind of gone up to sort of $50, $60, $70, and it's like, that is mental. I'm just not paying that for this kind of game. Now, thankfully, I didn't. It came in a mini bundle of games, to the point, I think I got the bundle for like sort of $30, and this was one of the games in it. Steal of the Century, and that game, which goes, like I say, for a fair bit, at least the American version, it's Lollipop Chainsaw. So, yeah, a very kind of madcap game, very much out there, like in a zombie kind of world. I can't remember what the character's called. It probably says on the back, I suppose, doesn't it? Okay, sorry about that. Quick jump cut, as I was saying. So, yeah, on the front cover there, you've got her boyfriend, whose head has been chopped off. I can't remember the circumstances. I've not yet played it. But I think, does he get infected by a zombie? He's get bitten, so then just to save him and chop his head off. Obviously, he's still alive. And I'm guessing at the end, but no spoilers, I'm just guessing that, you know, they rid the infected body of the zombie virus and put his head back on. Maybe not, I don't know. But he's still alive, albeit just the head, and he's guiding her around and trying to save the day and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, very much out there, a little bit wild, and quite expensive. Okay, another spaghetti. That's getting freezing now. Let's move on to the Switch. So, first up, there's 3 altogether. We've got Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Yeah, this is a game that when it was first announced, going back, was it last year maybe? I thought it looked amazing. I loved the fact that it appeared, at least at the time, to be a bit of a throwback with its touches to the 16-bit Super Nintendo era. Very artistic and, yeah, a bit of a homage in many, many ways. And then as time went on, as it got closer to the release, whilst I still did like that aspect of it, the graphical style to me looked like it wouldn't be something that would be my cup of tea. It looked too clean. You know how lots of these modern games, like the 2D games, they've got like a really clean filter over it. And it just, I don't like it. I prefer like the pixelated look to it, the that kind of retro-based aesthetic, essentially. But ultimately, I waited until it came out a couple of weeks and everybody was waxing lyrical over it, and I thought, bugger it, let's just get it. And I'm glad I did. It is a really good game. Now, it does look a little bit clean and fresh, and it's a modern game. So there's definitely that to it. However, it's charming because it does have those old throwback moments to it, where it does look like, in parts, a Super Nintendo game in terms of its humour and just little kind of cutscenes, not so much cutscenes, but little things that it's got in the game, like its artistic direction. And yeah, it very much takes me back. So it's a modern game quite clearly, but it does have hallmarks of old. So yeah, one for fans, I think, of old and new when it comes to Super Mario games. It's really, really good. But for me, I mean, I was touching upon the fact that, you know, earlier I'm finding a lot of these games, or just a few minutes ago, quite easy. This is another one of those which can be very easy to begin with, but the way the game's designed, which is clever really, it's to gradually kind of ramp up the difficulty, and then you get to a point where it's actually quite frustrating. And that's kind of where I'm at. So I'm guessing I'm around about 75% of the way through the game. I'm enjoying it, but it's tricky. But like anything else, isn't it? You know, practice makes perfect. So, yeah, it's a really good game. Okay, so a game which is still sealed, only just arrived recently, but I'm really pleased to get it. I believe it's out on the PlayStation 4, maybe the PS5 as well. I'm not sure, but I got it on the Switch. Now, the reason I got it on the Switch, this isn't like an exclusive rule that I have, but generally I like to play these kind of old school Metroidvania, or even just, in this case, like a 2D side-scroller games, like 16-bit aesthetic games. I like to, or prefer to play them on the Switch, because, it's going to sound silly, because they're such old-fashioned, old-school games that they remind me of those eras of the early to mid-90s and late 80s in some points. So, and back then, of course, especially in the early 90s, we had Nintendo. We didn't have the PlayStation 1, we didn't have the Xbox. So getting them on those systems, it doesn't quite feel right. I know it's ridiculous, but it just feels more authentic playing these kind of games on a Switch. It's a bit daft, isn't it? Anyway, that game is called Demons of Asterborg. So I remember Pete on a retro tip showing this ages ago, and it looked really, really cool. I know Pete likes to show a lot of like upcoming games for like the Mega Drive, because that's, I think, what originally came out on a Mega Drive, like a new Mega Drive game. So he does a lot of those kind of vids, as I'm sure you're aware. And it just looked really, really good, and I'd earmarked the fact that I wanted to get it eventually. It's just taken me a good 2 or 3 years, because I don't know when it came out. I don't think it says on the back, but yeah, it's probably a good 2 or 3 years ago. But yeah, looking forward to playing it, and I think I read as well that a sequel's in the works. Maybe Pete talked about that on one of his vids, so maybe you didn't. So yeah, pleased to get that, and I'll give that a crack soon. And then the last Switch game that I'll show, and then there's just 4 more games left after this, you'll be relieved to hear, is a game that I've finished, although it's a little bit like, is it Ghouls and Ghosts, or Ghosts and Goblins, where technically you finish the game. Well, you do, but then to get the real ending, you have to finish it a second time. I forget it. I've not finished that bloody game once in 30 odd years, let alone twice, back to back. You're having a laugh. Not happening. So, anyway, this game I have finished just yesterday, and then I've started like the second playthrough. Now, on the second playthrough, it mixes things up a little bit. There's some variety in the locations. They add a new little, I think, like sort of secrets here and there, and also there's new enemies that appear at different points. So it's interesting. It gives you a reason and an excuse to play the game again. Anyway, that game, which is also available on the PS4, I believe, is called Nuclear Blaze. I think it's made by the same person who made or the designer or somebody on what's that game called, Dead Cells, on the PS4 and the Switch, and that's a really cool game as well. So it kind of looks somewhat similar to that, with that pixelated look, and it's one of those kind of like Metroidvania platform games where you're a firefighter, if that wasn't already obvious, and you basically put out the fires, which is even more obvious. And so you've got, as the keyring drops out, like I'll be using this anytime soon. So yeah, you've got to put out the fires, and there's also some like boss fights essentially in the game, which took me by surprise, because I just thought it would be sort of like a realistic kind of, you put out the fire, you move on to the next place, rescue a few things, like there's cats you can rescue, that's like the secrets you uncover. I think there's 16 to uncover, and on the end of my first playthrough I'd found 8 of them, so God knows where the other 8 are. I guess, again, another reason to go back to the game and to find those things. So what was I saying? Oh yes, it's got the boss fights. That really took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting that. And they were a little bit challenging to begin with, but again, you soon figure out the pattern. You just study where they are, what they do, and then you soon get used to it. So yeah, the different power-ups essentially that you can pick up as well, like extra armour to protect you from the fire, a bigger hose. That sounds a bit dodgy, doesn't it? Yes, it contains more water, so you can put out the fires longer without having to like recharge and refill. So that's cool. And yeah, it's a really, really good game, but it's not particularly long, not really. I think there's like sort of 20 or 21 stages, as it were, and they can last, you know, a few minutes long, sometimes a bit longer, of course. But yeah, it's just a few hours worth, just a few hours of gameplay, at least for the first playthrough, if you just take your time and do a standard kind of just run. So, but I do really like it. I wish it was longer. In fact, I had a quick look yesterday, didn't have a thorough look, but a quick look to see if there's any DLC. And that for me is always a good sign that you've liked the game. You like it so much that you wouldn't mind buying some DLC, and I didn't see any. But maybe that's going to come out in the future, or maybe they'll make a sequel. But yeah, might be one for you to check out, Nuclear Blaze. It's really, really fun, but can get a little bit tricky. There's 1 or 2 levels that did kind of test my patience a little bit. There was one in particular where I just did not know what to do. It should have been obvious because everything was kind of on the screen at that time. I mean, you can jump up a little bit and see a little bit more of the screen, but ultimately everything was kind of there. But it was more about just timing it. I think sometimes you can put out a fire, or you think you've put it out, but you haven't put it out completely, and you see like a few little flames. So just make sure that you completely eradicate it before moving on. Because yeah, there's one level in particular where you've got these like kind of, I think 4 or 5 cylinders that are going to explode, like a nuclear kind of reaction. And obviously you don't want that to happen. So you want to put the fires out at each particular cylinder, if you like. And but they're all ticking down at different intervals. So you no sooner have you put one out, or you think you have, then you've got to quickly race to the other side of the screen before that counter gets to 0 and put that out. And then the one that you thought you put out has started counting down again. You're like, what's going on? And as I say, I think it's because I didn't put out all of the fires surrounding it. And then there's these wheels that you can kind of find, and then you hold down the X button, I think, twice. So that's not clear. I was doing it once to begin with. You've got to do it twice, or at least for some of them you do. And then that enables, it causes the sprinklers to come on, and that helps. It doesn't completely put out the fires, but it can really help and aid you into doing that. So yeah, quite a complex game for something so seemingly simple. But yeah, anyway, you can probably tell I really like it. So give it a go. That's Nuclear Blaze on the Switch, and I think it's on the PS4 as well. Speaking of PS4, there's one game on the PS4, then we've got 2 games on the PS5, and there's also an Amiga game, actually. Let's do the Amiga game first. It's been a long, long time since I showed one of these. So I love the box art, and this can be a really expensive game, but once again, I waited. I bought it in America, so I kind of lucked out a bit there that I got it for like half the price, probably not even that it usually goes for. Really pleased to get it, great condition, and it's Shadow of the Beast 3. I love the artwork. Look at that, the big box, so bulky as well. And yeah, very briefly played it. It's ages ago, actually, to be fair. I'd be lying if I said I put it on recently. Very much differs from the first 2. I mean, in terms of its aesthetics and just the look of the game, it's not too dissimilar. But in terms of there's extra gameplay and also the character that you're kind of controlling, it's very much a different game in that sense. But yeah, Shadow of the Beast 3 for me, possibly the best game in the series. I think Shadow of the Beast, the original one, even though it takes me back and it reminds me of being a kid and those days and friends and school and memories and all that kind of stuff, it's very much a game where it's style over substance. It really is. 2 was, I think, a little bit better. 3, I think, is probably the best one. It's not amazing, by the way, but it's probably the best one. But yeah, nice to add an Amiga game to the collection. It's been a long time since I've done that. And I do still pick up ST games as well. But they're few and far between, both Amiga and ST. It's not a priority for me. But when one comes up, which I really, really want, the condition's great, the price is great, I'll probably get it. So that's that. So 1 PS4 game, two on the PS5, and we'll have a swig, and then that'll be it. What's this been, about an hour? It's hard to tell because I had to stop the vid earlier because the bloody lawnmower, the gardeners. But yeah, it's probably been about an hour, hasn't it? What can you do? So very quickly on this one, because this arrived yesterday, I've played it for about 20 minutes. I didn't look at the instructions at what to do. I was basically button mashing, and that game is Ninja Saviors, or The Ninja Saviors, Return of the Warriors. So yeah, it goes back for me to Ninja Warriors, the game, back on the, I think it was on the Amiga and the ST, and the 8-bit systems as well. Also, there's a Super Famicom version. Did it get a PAL, an American release? I think it may have done. I think it did. So, but either way, yeah, side-scrolling, old-school fighter, essentially. And it looks really good. Graphics are really, really nice, as you'd expect. I'm probably not going to be able to see anything. Ordinarily, I'd put up screenshots, but I don't think I'm going to be doing it for this vid. If I do, I do. If I don't, I don't. But yeah, I might have done it before in the vid. Again, I might not have done. Depends how lazy I've been and how long this video lasts. If it lasts absolutely ages, then whatever. So yeah, I do like it. But what I'll say, this is going to sound like I'm criticising it because it's a pretty damning thing to say. But I'm saying this after 20 minutes of gameplay, not really knowing what I was doing, not looking. It doesn't come with any instructions, but that's just kind of symptomatic of the time, the era that we live in. But I didn't look at the on disc in menu instructions. So what I'll say is it felt a little clunky in places, which sounds like a huge criticism, admittedly. But I didn't really know what I was doing. All the buttons didn't really seem to do something, which surprised me. I thought every button would do something. But it just seemed like maybe 2 or 3 did. You've got like kind of a dash, which I think was the X, where you'll slide across the ground. And that, I think that kind of morphs into like a punch. Then you've got like a standard punch, and then there's a special move, which I think was enabled by like holding down and then pressing like a circle button, so I'm not quite sure. Like I say, I was just a quick test, that's all it was, just for 10-20 minutes. I played the first 2 levels, and I was basically button mashing. So I'm not judging the game on that. Obviously, I'm going to get used to the game, acclimatise to the controls, learn what they actually are, learn what the buttons do, and then I'll have a much better opinion of the game. I'm just saying, very first opinions, it just seemed a bit, I don't know, maybe not quite as good as what I thought, but I might be in a minority. Maybe I just need to, well, of course I'll stick with it, and I'll persevere and get used to the mechanics and the controls, like I say. Oh, 2 more things, bloody hell, I didn't show these before I show the PS5 games. Firstly, there's 2 memory cards for the PS2, essential, obviously. And then there's a controller for the Xbox, the Series X. It works on the PC as well, of course. And this is the Electric Volt. I won't get it out because it's just going to look like this. So it's very kind of in your face, with that illuminous kind of yellow and green look to it. But I like it. I've wanted it for ages. Annoyingly, even though I did save, I think it was $12, if I'd have waited like another week and a half, I could have saved an extra 10 because of the Black Friday sales, but I wasn't really thinking. Maybe subconsciously I saw the initial sale and I thought that was like the Black Friday in advance. So $10, big deal. But I could have saved that money nonetheless. Right, last but not least, 2 games on the PS5. One which arrived yesterday, which with the Ninja Saviors, so I've not played it yet. And then this one, which I played briefly. And I am enjoying it, but what I'll say is it's just same old, same old. And that game is Assassin's Creed Mirage. So, yeah, listen, every single Assassin's Creed game for me, basically they all look the same, they all play the same, but I do like them. It's not really a criticism as such. I mean, what more can you do? It's an open world game, you do the parkour. There's only so much you can do with these games, so I do like it. It's just, for me, it's a franchise which I tend to buy a game in the series every 2 or 3. Because, like I say, there's not too much which differentiates it from the previous one. Maybe the era, of course, that it takes place in, but other than that, mechanics are very similar. and the style, the look, everything about it's pretty much the same thing. So I do like it. It does look really good. Of course it would. It's on the PS5. In terms of consoles, at least, it's cutting edge. So this is the best it's going to get right now. But yeah, just if you've played the other Assassin's Creed games, it's basically just like the rest. Once you've played one, you've played them all. So I like it. It's all right. It's a bit throwaway in a sense. Nothing particularly memorable, but it's all right. And then last but not least, like I say, you'll be relieved to hear, I'm sure, still sealed, just arrived yesterday, and it's Octopath Traveler 2 on the PS5. I almost bought this on the Switch, but in the end, I just thought I'll get it on the PS5 just for the TV experience. I mean, of course, you can play Switch games on the TV, but just more. I guess it looks a bit better as well. There we go. Bit of a graphics whore. What can I say? So, yeah, picked it up. Now, when it comes to RPGs, I think this is like an RPG light. So, I'm never really one to play too many RPGs. I haven't been in the past. But in theory, I've always liked the idea of doing it. And I thought, well, rather than playing a really old one with its potentially kind of, I don't know, clunky mechanics and all that kind of stuff, I thought I'll just get a new one. One which has got a good reputation. And this, I don't think, has been out too long. So I thought I'd give this a go. Also, what played a crucial role in me getting this one is the fact that apparently, so I hear, you don't have to have played the first one. I think I heard that it takes place in the same kind of universe, but with different characters. So it's just a brand new story, and there's no continuation of the previous game. And I don't think the previous game, anyway, came out on the PS4. I think it's just on the Switch, isn't it? Stand corrected on that one. So, yeah, anyway, really, really pleased to get it. And I'm looking forward to giving this a go. I know it's going to be very involving, and it'll probably take hours upon hours, and that's an understatement. Probably hours at a time that you have to plough into these games. But yeah, I'm looking forward to doing it, and it might be the game which finally kind of gets me into like the RPG genre. But like I say, I think it's RPG light. I don't think it's particularly heavy, so it might be a good game to start with. Without contradicting myself, I've got more than a couple of RPGs on the PS1 that I do occasionally dip in and out of, but I've not played them for some time, so I've kind of lost my way with them. And I think once, like any game, once you've not played it for a long time, you forget about it, and it seems hard to go back to it. So I just think starting afresh with Octopath Traveler 2 is the way to go. So there we go. Let's take a quick swig right at the end. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm really sorry I took so long, 15 months to make a vid. Let's hope it's not 15 months until the next one. Let's see how we go. Maybe no one's watching this. Maybe it's gone on for far too long. But maybe we'll take a look at it. And maybe early next year, we'll possibly start making them with a bit more regularity and all the rest of it. Oh, by the way, let's do a couple of shout-outs just very quickly. And please check these channels out. So the first one, I won't reveal his last name, just in case he doesn't want it revealed. But it is his channel name, but he might change it. But it's Paul. His name's Paul. And I believe he goes on Instagram by the name RetroPixel. Again, link in the description box. A relatively new channel. Been going 2 or 3 months. And I really enjoy his content. Yes, shows some really, really good stuff. Kind of retro stuff with a bit modern as well. A bit of everything, really. So I think you'll like his channel. I really do. So please click on the description box. Give him a follow or a subscription. And, leave a few comments, get engaged and all that kind of stuff. Because that's what it's about, isn't it? Community. It's rich of me to say when I've hardly been commenting on anyone's vids for the past year and a bit. But I'm going to get a bit better at that going forward. So, yeah, check out Paul's channel. And then there's another person I've been watching in recent times. And his name is Clint. And it's RetroRewind. Again, but the difference I think with Clint is he very much prefers retro over modern. He doesn't really touch any modern stuff. So yeah, full Master System set, Super Nintendo games, N64. He's got an Amstrad as well. He's very much kind of old school. And it's not that Paul isn't, or that I'm not, or you're not, but with Clint, he very much kind of, that's his thing. Kind of late 80s, sort of 90s. That's his kind of era. So again, link in the description. And he started doing a few vlogs as well, which are really interesting. I like watching those. Because it's a little bit of a glimpse and an insight into people's life away from gaming, which is really cool. I mean, they're gaming related, but they're vlogs which kind of incorporate different things. Anyway, you'll see it if you click on the channel. when you click on the channel. So yeah, please check those 2 channels out. No excuses. It's Christmas. You've got time to do it. And we all always want to find new channels to watch and discover and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. Please check those 2 out. Links in the description. I'll be back, not this year. I just will not have the time to make another one, even though I want to. Listen, if I find the time, I will, but I doubt it. So this is my kind of Christmas vid, and then maybe we'll be back in the new year. And I promise, maybe, not to leave it so long until the next vid. So thank you for watching. I really appreciate you watching the vid all the way to the end, sticking with it, and sticking with the channel, because like I said, it's been too long. So anyway, have a lovely Christmas, really, seriously, have a lovely Christmas. Chill out, relax, don't get stressed, eat lots of chocolates like I'm going to do, and then the diet starts in January, and have a brilliant new year, and all the best for 2024. All right, Merry Christmas.